Number 11, San Francisco 49ers. We have Brugler going Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M defensive end. But then we got Zierlein and ESPN both going Kelvin Banks, the Texas offensive tackle. I'm assuming he slots in right away at left guard for them, where they don't really have anybody. I don't think you're kicking out Colton McKivitz to play him at right tackle. I think you're going left guard, left tackle the future, similar to like when Laramie Tunsil got drafted for the Dolphins. Left guard to left tackle. I think that's your goal here if you're drafting Kelvin Banks. So which one do you think?
Best available offensive lineman. And you talked about guard. We've seen him at tackle. He's a fantastic player. He'll translate well. He's a surefire starter in the National Football League based on the film I've looked at of him. And for San Francisco, you just want to continue to bolster that offensive line. It's kind of been a staple there for over a decade. You know, we've had big, strong tackle guys that play guard. We've got ass kickers at the tackle position that have the demeanor of guard. You're bringing a rookie last year with Dominic Puny. Let's just keep pouring into that bucket, because if you are going to make the move with Brock Purdy and spend all that money on Brock Purdy, then you better have invested in the offensive line, particularly in rookie contracts. Kelvin Banks gives you an opportunity to do that. And let's say you don't go with Brock Purdy and their move is elsewhere, then you better have a damn good foundation to your house, and it starts with the offensive line. So when that guy comes in, or if Brock Purdy stays, either way, he's got solid footing under him.
Yeah, I'm all in on Kelvin Banks here. I think this is my favorite fit for him in this draft. I think his floor is like here or the Dolphins. I was going to say Florida again, but I'd be floored if this isn't his floor, if he falls farther than 13, just given his tape, given his tools, and given the need and just nature of the offensive line position. So I got about a 20 or more spot difference on my draft board between Kelvin Banks and Shamar Stewart. So this one's a no-brainer for me. I'm leaning Kelvin Banks. All right, Dallas Cowboys, another unanimous one. Everyone going Matthew Golden, the Texas wide receiver here.
Let me just tell you what, the single digits, I spit on him a little bit as it pertains to interior defensive linemen yesterday. Like, if you got a bad body, don't wear it. I like the number 2 on this guy a lot. All right. And it would kind of be a theme in Dallas to have these skill guys be in single digit numbers. You could get that going. You could get that rolling. I think it would be sweet. Also, played in Austin, not too far from where the hell do they play? Where's Jerry's World? What's the exact town? It's not Dallas.
Frisco.
It's Frisco, Texas, which I always thought was just a smaller version of San Francisco. Turns out it's not. And it's in Texas, and the Cowboys play.
Or is that where it is? Or is it in Arlington?
Arlington. Isn't that where the Texas Rangers have their
facility
beautiful
might be.
I know Arlington is where the Rangers play. I would imagine there would be another sports venue there. That would be where Jerry's World is.
AT&T
but yeah,
unanimous
decision here. Let's get a guy with a ton of skills and try to be able to score points. That's the name of the game. Obviously, they're going to be without Zach Martin. Tyron Smith is out of the NFL, and he wasn't there last year either. They've had to reshape what this offense looks like, and they should lean into the skill game.
I do not have Matthew Golden this high on my board, but I have no other choice. I'm going Matthew Golden in this mock. All right, Miami Dolphins, 13. But he is more of a number 2. And again, you're going to a spot where that's great. You got a number 1. So
there's an obvious
desperately need weapons. So it's like a beggars can't be choosers sort of situation for them. All right, Miami Dolphins. Brugler going Nick Manwari, the South Carolina safety. Zierlein going Kenneth Grant, the Michigan DT. And then ESPN's going Will Johnson, obviously off the backs of the Jalen Ramsey trade talk for the Dolphins. Which one do you like best?
Well, I've heard you talk about Nick Manwari a ton, and that's an interesting prospect. And I think Miami's kind of going for however we can help our defense the most pick. And it depends on what you want. Do you want to bolster that front 7? Do you want to get some help on the back end? And I think all these picks would be great, but I like the 2 first guys the most, Kenneth Grant and Nick Manwari. I'd be interested to hear what you say. I'd be interested to hear what Harry would say, our producer, as he is a massive Dolphins fan, and he runs the chat, the NFL on CBS chat during our stream. So I'm sure he's going to give me some feedback. They need defensive tackles. Will Johnson's too good to pass up. See, I think the defensive tackles things is great because if you're lacking on the back end, you could just plaster these guys at the line of scrimmage, fold the pocket. the ball's going to be bad. Okay. It's the great equalizer. It's a great pass rush, a great run defense. There's no complaints from me ever going with the best defensive player, interior guy possible.
To me, between these three, I'd probably go Will Johnson too. He's the highest on my board. And I'm just looking at this roster. Should they trade Jalen Ramsey away and not get, obviously a player in return? I doubt if they did. This might be the worst defense in the NFL. And it's tough to say, but like their secondary on paper right now, Cam Smith, Storm Duck, Kader Kohu, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Ashton Davis. It's not good. And their defensive line, the interior defensive line, obviously, Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, Neil Farrell. That ain't too good. Like there's just, they can throw a dart and hit a need on this defense. So it really is best defensive player available. And since I have Will Johnson the highest, I'm going to like Will Johnson. But again, there's so many, unfortunately, the way this roster's gone, it might be tough before it gets better in Miami here. All right, not to the Colts, number 14 overall, where we got a common theme here. Brugler going Colson Loveland, Kuiper Yates going Colson Loveland, and Lance Zierlein going Tyler Warren. They think they need a tight end. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, what's the best way to help a young quarterback? Put somebody right in front of him who can run sideline to sideline with him when he's breaking contained, that you can consider to be a surefire target, a layup, as it were, in basketball. You said that everything that I said about Tyler Warren, in your opinion, there's some skill sets that Colston Loveland is more advanced in and has some more abilities. And I feel like when you're trying to really put a pacifier in your quarterback's mouth, the best way to do it is one of these super skilled do-it-all tight ends. And obviously Zierlein has Tyler Warren. Brugler and Kuiper Yates have Loveland. I think if Warren's gone at 10, then obviously the next pick is going to be Colston Loveland.
I prefer Loveland of the two. So I'm going to prefer Loveland for the Colts. I don't think there's too much debate, too much more to say about it like that. I just think he's the more complete wide receiver. And I think for that offense, now it's not necessarily where I go on my board right now, given like what they have, but I mean, with the weapons they now have, if you had a Colston Loveland to that offense, if Anthony Richardson doesn't succeed, at that point, because it's a stacked receiving core there in Indy. All right. Atlanta Falcons, number 15 overall. Brugler going Mike Green, ESPN going Mike Green, the Marshall defensive end, Lance Zierlein going Will Johnson, the Michigan corner. I like Mike Green. I love this Mike Green. This to me feels like pass. I don't want to say pass rusher only. You never pigeonhole yourself into one spot as a team, but it's such a good class. The need is so great that I would be floored if they did not go on the edge. And, Will Johnson, corners in need too, but it just feels like edge and pass rush have been a need for so long that I'm just going to lean there in this class. Find that cornerback later. Give me Mike Green.
Yeah, they reached last year to get an edge rusher, and they didn't get a lot of production out of him. I'm not talking about the draft. I'm talking about in the offseason. And you have to find a guy that can rush and get home. And Mike Green, from the great state of Virginia, so he's going to be a baller. He will benefit from having all those weapons on that offensive side of the ball that we've fallen in love with. Darnell Mooney, what's the big receiver's name? Drake London. Michael Penix is going to be throwing that thing all over the yard. Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, they're going to give you opportunities to rush the passer. For the Falcons, they didn't have that guy who could get home at the edge rush position. Bring Mike Green in. I love this one.
Arizona Cardinals at 16. You got three different guys here. Brugler going Michael Williams, the Georgia edge. Zierlein going Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard. And then ESPN goes Jahdae Barron, the Texas corner. Now, this is an interesting one because these three guys on my board are within like 6 spots. So it's really to the point where probably going to lean when it's that close. I'd probably lean for like, what's the biggest need? Where's the biggest impact going to be made? Who can see the field quicker? That sort of thing. To me, man, I don't think I would go Michael Williams. I think they've done enough at edge, whether it's Darius Robinson last year, whether it's Baron Browning, whether it's Zaven Collins kind of looking all right as an edge rusher. Like they have guys now, and then they signed Josh Sweat in the offseason. So it's like, that's not where their needs lie anymore. The needs are on the interior. I'm surprised no one went defensive tackle at this point with Derek Harmon on the board for a lot of these guys. So then after that, I'm thinking, yeah, you could add to the secondary, but they're all so young already. You've drafted a lot of guys in the top 3 rounds over the past couple seasons that I'm not sure they're going to look to add this early. Now, Jahdae Barron's probably, my eval on him is better than the eval I had on all the other guys they drafted coming out, right? And it's obviously still a point of contention, but I might look guard here. I might be leaning Tyler Booker to add to this offensive line because, for better or worse, you are all in on Kyler Murray, right? And I think there are offenses where Kyler Murray can lead you to an elite level. Shoot, we saw it with Cliff Kingsbury at one point in time. Guy was like, we're over halfway through the season, he was the front runner for MVP. So we've seen it before, and they have it in their offensive, their receiver room, and like with tight end too. If you throw Trey McBride in there, like they have the weapons to do it. Just give them the offensive line now. So I think I lean Tyler Booker here.
You mentioned defensive line as a need for this team, and they did a good job of addressing that. And I'm surefire going to see some day 2 guys, day 3 guys for the Arizona Cardinals that are on the defensive line. But I think to your point about Tyler Booker plugging in at this offensive line, it makes me want to point out how your offense looks when you've got a guy like Kyler Murray and you have the ability to threaten teams on the edge with Kyler Murray's legs and his arm. You add Tyler Booker in there, and you have an offensive line that's ready to give you that nasty run game early and often. It will give you that suck on the second level, which is, when I say suck, I mean the respect of that second level. When you go to hand the football off or give a play action, their eyes live in the backfield. The defensive linemen are playing run because they've seen run time and time again. That's when Kyler Murray could slip out, make those big plays down the field or with his legs. I love Tyler Booker. You're never going wrong going offensive lineman, but the Jahdae Barron pick would also be interesting because never leave a team without corners.
Yeah, and then I just love the idea of Paris Johnson, Tyler Booker on the left side. I love when you compare 2 elite guys next to each other, because a lot of runs, say you run counter left, right? Power left. It's basically predicated on that double team. That double team hits, you got a positive play more often than not. And so if you have 2 elite guys next to each other, you can scheme it up to where you're favoring that.
It could be a legendary deuce block.
Yes. There you go. All right. Cincinnati Bengals at 17. We got 3 different guys. Same theme, defensive line. Dane Brugler going Derek Harmon. Lance Zierlein going Mike Green. And then ESPN going Walter Nolan, the Ole Miss defensive tackle. Is this the first sighting of Derek Harmon on this list? Oregon defensive tackle? I'm just going to say it right here. I have Derek Harmon as the 9th overall player on my draft board. I'm finalizing it today, but he's number 9. I think he's exceptional. I think it's a massive need for the Cincinnati Bengals. So pretty much anytime Derek Harmon's going to get drafted after this, because he's the first time I've seen him, I'm probably going to lean Derek Harmon. I think he's going to be an awesome player. So that's going to be my take. I'd like to hear yours.
I forget who we were watching yesterday with Mitch Morse at the studio, and they were playing against Derek
Marcus
Harmon.
Bowe.
Okay. So we were watching the Purdue tackle. They were playing Oregon, right?
Yes.
They played Oregon, and I couldn't keep my eyes off Derek Harmon. Even when he wasn't making plays, he was preventing offensive linemen from making explosive blocks. He was standing tall in the trenches against double teams, battling in the pass rush department. And when I think about the Cincinnati Bengals, I just think about how inept they are on the defensive side of the ball and how they've become a paper mache Bengal on the defensive side of the ball. I remember when Lou Anarumo had this group rolling, and they had great guys on the second level or the third level of the defense, and they had pass rushers on both sides, and they had a good defensive interior part of their line. You start from the inside, you build it out. Go get Derek Harmon on that football team, and the rest will kind of take care of itself.
And to me, when I'm scouting in the trenches, there is something to it, and you're a great example of this. How weight looks on a guy. You were 320 and you look like you couldn't have been 280 if you tried, right? You just are a big boned human being. Derek Harmon is a massively boned human. He is just a large man. And so like the weight on him does not look like fat. It's not look like it's hanging off him poorly. He is just a well put together 315 pounds. And that matters to me when I'm scouting defensive linemen. It's not the end all be all. If you have a bad body and you can still play, you can still play. But more often than not, the elite guys, the guys that really got it, they look like that. Derek Harmon, dude, I think he's going to be a stud. So I am a fan of that fit. My buddy Jim, massive Bengals fan, texts me all the time about Derek Harmon. He's like, that's the dream fit. That's the dream fit.
That's the guy.
I think it is. All right, Seattle Seahawks. Interesting one here. This is the highest I've seen him. Gray Zabel.
Love this.
Dane Brugler has them going Gray Zabel. Mel Kiper and Field Yates have them going Gray Zabel. The North Dakota State offensive lineman. Now, obviously, he's a tackle at North Dakota State. I think you're slotting him here at either guard or center. You drafted Christian Haynes in the third last year. You're hoping he takes a step forward into a starting role this year. But Zabel obviously fills a huge, huge need. And zero line going Tet McMillan. And as much as I love Tet McMillan, and I have him much higher on my board, I don't know if I love the fit here just because you already have one of the slowest receiving cores in the NFL.
Don't make it slower.
If your starting three is Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Tet McMillan, T-Mac. I just got to stop calling him Tet. He said no one calls him Tet, but it's T-Mac.
T-Mac.
Your fastest guy runs a 4.55. Like you are slow. And that, as much as, they're all good receivers, you just don't have the threat of speed. And so that just condenses how defenses play against you. So I'll probably lean Gray Zabel for them, even if, again, I have T-Mac. Yeah, stop saying Tet. A lot higher.
I love Gray Zabel here. And it makes me realize something about John Schneider. He's changed his tune. If he does go with Gray Zabel.
He does.
Because what has he said? I'm going to try to find the exact quote here while I'm talking about this. But there's a handful of GMs who really have a soft spot for offensive linemen, particularly guards. So John Schneider has been quoted as saying, I don't really think there's tons of value in that position. Well, he obviously has turned on the tape in Seattle, and he also realizes that maybe they didn't upgrade at the quarterback position, and they're going to have to do whatever they can do to bolster the offensive line. Gray Zabel's the guy we've talked about ad nauseum, plays the game the right way, can play any position. Showed up at the Senior Bowl and just played everything and did it well. So whatever need you have, he can fill it. You can try him at a number of different spots. Whatever progress or lack of progress you've made in that room as it pertains to the other players, he can fill a need. And I believe in that, in his ability to do that.
All right, Tampa Bay Bucks at 19. 3 different guys here. Brugler going Jihad Campbell, the Bama linebacker. Zierlein going Shamar Stewart, the Texas A&M defensive end. And then ESPN going Nick Emanwari, the South Carolina safety. I'm going Jihad Campbell here. Yeah, this is his fit. This is it, him going to that defense. Obviously, it's like a massive need outside, Servassier, Dennis, Levante David, your starting linebackers. But Todd Bowles wants to blitz. Jihad Campbell is a glorified edge rusher in his skill set, in what he's capable of doing as a pass rusher. That's what you want when you're going to blitz the guys. As much as Todd Bowles is going to blitz his linebackers, you want a Jihad Campbell. The value starts to tip in favor of a linebacker, then, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you get to learn from one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
If you say that he's a glorified edge rusher, well, he will learn how to play off-ball linebacker the right way for the people in that room. So I think it is obviously a need for the team and for Jihad Campbell. It doesn't get much better than ending up in a room with a guy like Levante David.
All right, Denver Broncos. We got a unanimous one here at number 20. Omarion,
this is the quickest one we should do.
North Carolina running back. Need, fit, great player. Next one, 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's where Derek Harmon's coming off the board. We have Zierlein did a trade. He actually has the Steelers trading back to 26. So at 26, they pick Jahdae Barron. So maybe not. So they go to 26 to pick Jahdae Barron. ESPN has them going Derek Harmon. Dane Brugler has them going Shedeur Sanders. I got to think about this one for a second. All right, so Jahdae, Derek Harmon, Shedeur Sanders.
I love if Shedeur's available, I love Shedeur to Pittsburgh, because just like that culture in New Orleans and how they'd have a different appreciation for a guy like Shedeur, I just feel like Mike Tomlin would protect him like one of his own, and he would do his part in making sure that he can stick the landing in Pittsburgh. And what do they need? What have they been begging for in Pittsburgh? A quarterback. Well, you go and get a guy like that people believe in. We saw the team rally around and believe in Justin Fields, but there was a ceiling to what he was able to accomplish. I would imagine that the ceiling in terms of production is higher with Shedeur Sanders, and that's all they need in Pittsburgh. They don't need it much higher. They just need somebody who can keep them afloat offensively, keep the ball moving. But yeah, Derek Harmon would be one of those picks where it just fits the MO of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's just get as many badasses as we can and put them up front.
I lied. I misread it. Zierlein has them trading back to 26, and that 26 going Derek Harmon. Jody Barron going to the Rams then. So I'm going Derek Harmon. He feels like, I mean, he's going to the guy who's one of the ultimate put together, couldn't be any lighter. Cam Hayward is a guy who just like what was born and was going to be 315 pounds, just like he had to be. That guy is not carrying an ounce of extra weight on him. Derek Harmon fits that bill. He is your Steelers defensive tackle. So I'm leaning Derek Harmon. All right, Los Angeles Chargers at 22. The options, we got 3 different ones. Brugler going Kenneth Grant, Michigan DT. Zierlein going Colson Level in the Michigan tight end. And then Kuiper Yates going Emeka Egbuka, the Ohio State wide receiver. I love Colson Level in here, man. I just love it. I've said it before. I will keep mocking it until draft day. Colson Leveland makes too much sense for the Los Angeles Chargers. That's my fit.
Obviously, if Loveland's available, it's a slam dunk home run. 2 Michigan men living in a van down by the Pacific Ocean. Be a lot of fun. But I also think continuing to add at the receiver position in Los Angeles. I watched the Chargers play the Titans yesterday from like week 10. And man, oh man, Ladd McConkey can play. Think about how much better he'll be with another guy out there that you have to respect. And obviously they've got Palmer and Quentin Johnston, but you need another guy with real juice. And Emeka's got that. So I think it would be if Loveland's not available and he ends up in Indianapolis like we've seen mocked, this would be the pick, in my opinion.
I will say all 3 of these guys, Grant, Loveland, and Egbuka, those are the needs for this roster. You need a DT. You need a reliable wide receiver. And you could use a playmaking tight end. So I think all 3 fit. I'm just going to lean Loveland.